Hi, folks. Don Paul here on Don Paul Blathers. I'm always up for blathering, but I haven't done a lick of work in the last week out visiting in California. My daughter and my cute little granddaughter and my daughter's husband. Now I'm back. I want to clear up an issue which does cause some confusion, and some of the confusion is being raised by mainly non scientist media commentators who try to spread their own blather that humans don't affect climate. The earth has always cooled and always warmed and always will, and we have virtually or nearly nothing to do with it. And while those people are becoming a smaller and smaller minority, they still do have considerable influence. Let's take a look at natural mechanisms which affect the climate and try to subtract human activity and see how the Earth would have been doing over the last 30 years if it weren't for our activity. Burning fossil fuel being the number one, and adding CO2 and also an increasing amount of methane getting into the atmosphere from human activity. One important driver of climate is the variation in solar irradiance. And over the last 30 years, from 1985, not up to this present year, but this is since the data has been gathered, to 2010, solar irradiance has actually declined a little bit. And so that would have been producing global cooling, or would have been an influence aimed toward global cooling. Then there is a long-term oscillation in the Pacific called the PDO, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, and that too, from 1979 through 2010, would have been producing some cooling. And so here we have two important mechanisms that nature produces. We have no control over this. That would have been causing the Earth to cool. Another influence that can change weather and climate in the short term is the El Nino Southern Oscillation. And that, as you see, has ups and downs, and basically it would not have produced a longer term cooling or warming. So we have two cooling agents and one showing no change. But then when we inject us CO2 concentration, that produces warming. Even though carbon dioxide is a trace gas, it has increased since the Industrial Revolution by more than 40%, and it traps long-wave infrared radiation, which produces warming, and the warming that would have been expected from CO2 has in fact occurred. The actual temperatures taken over the 1979 to 2010 period have been warming. So the basic message here, and there is a complete consensus on this amongst atmospheric physicists, atmospheric chemists, oceanographers, meteorologists, and of course climate scientists, that humankind is outstripping nature. And if it weren't for all of the human activity, which is adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, and remember, warming also increases evaporation, and that adds water vapor to the atmosphere. It's up 7% in recent decades over its normal. That is a strong greenhouse gas too. So if it weren't for us, the world would have been cooling off. And all those scientific disciplines I just mentioned, despite scouring all the data, published papers, peer-reviewed papers, there is no other explanation for the irrefutable evidence of warming. The Earth is warming, not evenly, not in every spot, but there's no getting away from that. So that's a quick message and a basic primer on why it is us and not just the typical Earth cyclical warming which is occurring. Talk to you soon.